sanctuary. Hallelujah. We will lift our hands and we will bless the Lord. Yes, we enter into his holy presence. Yeah, yeah. We will worship God and praise his holy name. He's worthy tonight. Hallelujah. As we enter, thank you, Lord Jesus. As we enter into your holy presence, yeah, we will worship God and praise his holy name. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yes, we enter, yeah, yeah, into his holy presence. We will worship God and praise his holy name. As we enter into your holy presence, oh, we will worship God and praise his holy name. Holy name.
Good morning. I'm Donald Curtis here at the Lithia Baptist Church right here in Macon, Georgia. And I'm going to welcome all of you to our Sunday morning enrichment hour. And this morning we'll be discussing our Sunday school lesson. And today's lesson is coming out of John chapter 6, verses 15 through 21. And the title of our lesson for today is Jesus Walks on the Water. And what we see here is that this is something extraordinary. This is something that defies all the laws of physics, the laws of gravity. In fact, it's something that is humanly impossible. And that's the whole point that John is making during this whole ministry, that Jesus is not just another man. He's not just a regular human being, okay? And that actually what he's demonstrating here that is Jesus' deity by performing these miracles. Okay, and so in today's lesson, said it comes out of John chapter 6, verse 15 through 21. And as we start our lesson today in verse 15, we see this here. When Jesus therefore perceived that they would come and take him by force to make him a king, he departed again unto a mountain, himself alone. Now let's get the setting here, because when it says when Jesus therefore, that has the idea of something that's a result of something that's occurred. And what we see here is this, that Jesus had just had performed a miracle. He had just had fed the 5,000, which in actuality, it actually could have been 2 to 3 times that amount, because when it said the 5,000, it's only speaking of the 5,000 men. It doesn't take into account that the women and the children that was also present at this time. But he had fed the 5,000. And then in verse 14 tells us that, and as a result of feeding the 5,000, and when they saw that miracle, then some of the Jews began to say, like, well, this must be the prophet that is supposed to come. And they are referencing Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 15, when Moses told the nation back then that after me, God will raise up another prophet, like me. And so they began to begin to think back from their teaching that, well, they remembering that when they was in Egypt, how God had worked in miracles through Moses, how he had used Moses to lead them out of Egypt, how he had rained down bread from heaven to feed them in the wilderness. So like they were attaching all these miracles and seeing what Jesus had been done. Because not only did Jesus feed the 5,000 on this same day here, before he did the feeding, he also was healing all the sick. And so like they are equating what Moses did as compared to what Jesus done. And so like now, they said, well, this must be that prophet. And they were correct, but then they get the whole picture. They was only thinking that he was going to be just another man doing the same thing. So they said, let's make him a king. And so what we see is, but that's a problem with that. Because see, the first thing we see is this here. They want to make Jesus who they wanted him to be instead of accepting him for who he truly was. And another thing is this here. Another problem is this. They want to take matters to their own hand. They want to get ahead of God. And anytime we get ahead of God, we in essence, we get out of the will of God. And when we get out of the will of God, it's usually because we have our own self-serving, selfish motives. And that will always lead us to get out of the will of God. And so what Jesus does here, and this is an example for us. So what he does, he's withdraw from them. He come out from among them. And the reason being is this right here, because they wanted to make him not only their political leader, and they want to make him a king. But Jesus said he, by departing from them, he had no desire for their political endeavors. Why? Because Jesus had a mission and he had a purpose. See, Jesus came to offer himself a sacrifice to bring salvation to all humanity. In a like manner, we too, we have a mission, we have a purpose. Our mission and purpose is found in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 19 and 20, and where the Apostle Paul tells us that God has committed to us the ministry of reconciliation. And as ambassador of God, we speak on his behalf. We share in the gospel, bringing people to salvation. That is our mission, and that's our purpose. And just like Jesus had a mission and a purpose, he was not going to allow men to pull him away from it. We too need to have a mission and a purpose, and we do not let men pull us away from our mission and our purpose. And so, and look at verse 16. But see, during this day when Jesus, like I said, this has been a full day. He was healing them, he fed them, and now it's getting late in the afternoon. And it's time for them, no, it's not about time for everyone to go home. But Jesus had told his disciples to go over to Capernaum. And see, that's what we're going to see here in verse 16. And so when evening had come, it's getting late in the afternoon now. And when evening was nigh come, his disciples went down unto the sea and entered into a ship and went over the sea toward Capernaum. Now notice they said they went toward Capernaum. Now the intent was not to go toward Capernaum. Their intent was to go to Capernaum. And then it says this, and it was now dark, and Jesus would not come to them. So now this is kind of an illustration here that I want you to see. And notice now, and John make a point here to point out two important things here. He says it was not dark, and Jesus had not yet come. And see, the idea here is this right here. They had left Jesus, and they went out into the darkness. And so the idea is this right here. When you leave Jesus and you go out into the darkness, was a representative of the world. And so that's the point he's making here. So just an illustration here now. Now, they left Jesus, and they went out into the darkness, they went into the world. And anytime we leave Jesus and go out into the world, there's always consequences. And we're going to see this here as we go through this lesson. Now look at verse 18 here. It says, and the sea arose by reason of a great wind that blew. Notice that it make a point to tell us a great wind that blew. This was not just some breeze where they just went sailing on in the afternoon. No, this is a great breeze. This is like a really, really violent storm going on here. And this thing about this, anytime we go into the darkness, we can expect chaos, confusion, and adversity. And the same thing holds true for us. And we depart from Jesus, and we go out into the world, we also going to find ourselves in the storms of life. Temptation, trials, and troubles. The storms of life, they always going to come your way anytime we depart from Jesus. That's what we can expect. But now notice verse 19 here. And it says, and when they had rowed about 5 and 20 or 30 furlongs, they see Jesus walking on the sea and drawing nigh. That means coming toward them unto the ship, and they were so afraid. Now that 25 or 30 furlongs, what they saying that, it's about 3 or 4 miles. In essence, they had got about 4 or 5 miles out into the sea. Okay? But there's something else I want you to see here now. There's a parallel passage to this passage here also. We find in Matthew chapter 14 in verses 22 to 33. It gives some additional information. And I want to and so in the Matthew passage, it gives some additional information here, and what it tells us is this: that it was the fourth watch. Now, see, in that culture, in the New Testament times, so they would break the night hours down into what they call 4 watches. See, it was like from sundown to sunup. Okay, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., that was the first watch. 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. was the second watch. 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. was the third watch. Now, 3 a.m. to 6 a.m., no, that was the fourth watch, and that's where they are. And that's where they are. Now, I want you to get this setting now, and if you can, put yourself here. Now, notice what's going on here. First now, okay, notice, they're in the midst of a storm. A great storm arose, okay? Now, they're about 3 or 4 miles out in the sea. They're in the middle of the sea. And but now, notice, at 3 a.m. in the morning, they're in the dead of the night. They're in the midst of the storm. Now, put yourself in this setting now. And so, and when he tells us, and then John said, and they see Jesus walking on the sea. But so the Matthew passage gives them additional information. What they saw, they didn't know whether it was Jesus or not. Actually, what they saw, according to the Matthew passage, they thought they saw a ghost. And the reason why, because, remember they said in there, they're in the midst of a storm, they're in the middle of the sea, in the dead of the night. So you really can't see. Only thing that they saw something, but they knew who it was or what it was. But now notice here but they could see something glowing in the distance. And what we see here, just here, that where the Spirit of the Lord is, it repels the darkness. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, it also reflects the glory of God. And the same holds true with us. We too should reflect the glory of God. And you think about the culture today in which we are living, all the chaos, all the turmoil, but the people of God still should reflect the glory of God. The people of God, when you think about thousands of people dying every day, but yet there's still those who are just clamoring to go to parties, clamoring to go to the nightclubs, just clamoring to go to the beaches, just clamoring to do their own thing in the midst of a pandemic. All this stuff going on, but the people of God, they still should reflect the glory of God. If anyone should be obeying and following the authority, should be the people of God. We shouldn't be acting like the world, okay? And then, but the main point is this right here, that I want you to see in this whole text here, is that, notice now, they're in the midst of a storm, they're in the middle of the sea, in the dead of the night. But notice something here, Jesus comes seeking them. And just like with us, when we go astray, we turn away, Jesus still will come seeking after us. In fact, in Luke chapter 15, verses 3 to 6, Jesus tells a parable about the lost sheep. He tells this parable about there was a man who had 100 sheep, and one went missing, one got lost. And because of his love, and because of they were all precious in his sight, he was not content with the 99. No, he went and searched diligently until he found the one that was lost. Also in that same chapter in Luke chapter 15, verses 8 and 9, he also tells another parable about the lost coin. That's a woman who had 10 precious coins, and she lost one. But she was not, but because of her love and because all of them was precious to her, she lit a lamp. She swept the floor. She searched it diligently until she found that lost coin. And that's the same thing Jesus does for us. We see here, even though they was in the midst of the storm, in the dead of the night, in the middle of the sea, Jesus still came looking for them. And that's something I want you to see here now. But notice now that even though in this condition that they were in, God knows where we are. God still comes seeking after us. God knows exactly where we are. But the main point is right here too. I want you to see that now, remember the setting that they are in, okay? Everything is just raging around them. No, it's dark. They're in the middle of the sea. They're in the middle of a storm. And no, the waves are raging. The wind is blowing. But Jesus comes walking on the water. Notice, for him, everything is the same sea, the same water, the same night, but yet everything is peaceful. But it tells us this, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is peace. When we look at the culture today, all this confusion, all this turmoil, all this unrest, God is not in it. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is peace. And look at verse 20 here. But and remember now, and because all this stuff going on, they were so afraid because what they saw, they didn't know whether it was, they couldn't tell that it was Jesus. Only thing they saw, they just saw an image in the water. But notice what Jesus does here. Not only does he come seeking after them, notice here, but he said unto them, it is I, be not afraid. Now, see, they couldn't see Jesus, but they heard his voice. See, in John chapter 10, Jesus tells us, I am the good shepherd, and my sheep will hear my voice, and they will not follow another. And we look at the culture today, if people truly hearing the voice of God, are they truly following someone else? Think about that. And then but also in verse 20 this here, in the Matthew passage, it gives us some different information here also I want you to see. Because when Jesus appeared, they see him walking on the water, and he said, no, fear not, it is I. So in the Matthew passage also tells us this, that when they heard his voice, then Peter says, Lord, if it's thou, command me to come to you. And he told them, come. And Peter got out of the ship, and he started walking toward Jesus. And he started walking toward Jesus. But then when he began to take his eye off of Jesus and started looking around, and then seeing all the turmoil that's going on, he began to sing. And he began to sing. But see, that's a lesson there for us. I want you to understand here. When Peter began to sing, see, the idea of this here, see, God didn't call us to do the miraculous. God called us to do the practical. God gave us a mission and a person, and a purpose in 2 Corinthians 5, 19 and 20. He told us that he gave us the ministry of reconciliation. He told us to go share the gospel. And that is our mission, and that's our purpose. He didn't call us to do the miraculous. He called us to do the practical. See, the hard deal is here. He didn't call us to heal the sick and raise the dead. He got hospitals for that. God wanted us to stay committed to our mission and to our purpose, and that's what we saw Jesus did. He didn't allow men to pull him away to go to their own self-serving motives. No, he stayed true to his mission and to his purpose. Okay, and then look at verse 21. It says, then they willingly received him into the ship, and immediately the ship was at the land whither they went. And notice what happened. They couldn't see Jesus, but they heard his voice. And when they heard his voice, then they believed. And then notice, immediately they were delivered. And immediately they was where they was set out to go. And what we see here, is this, that woven into this lesson is actually the gospel plan of salvation. Look, notice in verse 16 and 17, and they departed from Jesus. They went out into the world. Verse 19, he tells us, and Jesus comes seeking after them. Verse 20, he calls out to them. And then in verse 21, and even they couldn't see him, they heard his voice, and they believed him, and they willingly accepted him, and immediately they were delivered. And the same thing happened to us. In Ephesians chapter 1, verse 13, Scripture tells us that when Jesus seeks us, we hear his voice, and we believe, and immediately we are baptized and sealed with the Holy Spirit. Immediately we are translated from the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of light. So you see how the plan of salvation is woven into this lesson. See, the greatest miracle here was that not only did Jesus exercise authority over the waters, over nature, by calming the sea and calming the wind. See, all of these things, he was happening. Now, notice that these things were happening in real time for his disciples to increase their faith. And so to increase their faith. And because in the Matthew passage, in Matthew 14:33, it tells us that when they received Jesus into the boat, everything became calm. And then they said that you are truly the Son of God. But if we go back to the beginning of the lesson, after he was fed the 5,000 performed the miracle, they said he was the prophet. But the disciples, see, they got the message. They realized that no, he wasn't just a prophet. He actually was the Messiah. He actually was the Son of God. And that's what Jesus was trying to get them to see. And they understood the message. And when we think about our culture today, all the turmoil, all the unrest going on, what we truly need is a revival. I remember back in the early 1990s, a movement got started. It was called the Promise Keepers. It was a good idea, but the enemy would not allow something like that to prosper. And I can remember being at in July 1995, being at the Georgia Dome in Atlanta, Georgia. I mean, the dome was filled to nearly capacity, nearly 80,000 men singing, worshiping, praising God, all in one voice. And I can remember being there and thinking that men that I'd never seen before, probably never seen again, how they was praying together, how men was communicating together, tearing down the walls of racism, hatred, and how some was confessing how like they had been brought up believing a certain way, believing a certain thing, and realizing that it was wrong, and it was confessing. Some mean almost to tears. But then that was Jesus and the foundation on which he stood. And so it just couldn't quite come together. Oh, but 25 years later, that foundation of Jesus has been torn down. Truth is no longer matters. I mean, righteousness, justice, love, peace, forgiveness, those things no longer prevalent in society today. And I was thinking that, but now, and you look at how, because of that foundation of Jesus, now it's been torn down. Those who you never thought had anything in common now has come together, standing as one voice. And I'm thinking, now, we can come together because of Jesus, but now we come together in spite of Jesus. And you think about that in our lesson today, when it said, those who hear, when Jesus called out to his sheep, and my sheep will hear my voice. In 2021, the people of God, the true saints of God, need to hear the voice of God and come out from among them. And just like Nehemiah, in 444 BC, he went back to rebuild the wall. Let's let 2021 be the year when the people of God hear the voice of God, come out from among them, and let's rebuild the foundation of Jesus Christ, where truth matters, justice and righteousness, love, peace, forgiveness. See, love is still the answer. All this stuff going on, don't let these things pull us away, and that we actually feel a need for revenge, that we feel a desire for payback. No, those things are wrong. Love is still the answer. And just like our lesson today, see, it was not about the miracles. See, the greatest miracle here was the miracle of salvation. That's why the gospel plan of salvation is woven into this text. See, that was happening in real time in order to increase his disciples' faith. We don't need miracles today to increase our faith, because we know the scripture tells us today in Romans 5:8 that God demonstrated his love for us while we were yet sinners, that he died for us. So love is the answer. It wasn't the miracles. It's about the plan of salvation. It's about love. And love is still the answer. And we do not, and just like Jesus had a mission and a purpose, he was not going to allow the people to pull him away from it. Let us stay true to our mission, our purpose, to share the gospel. Love is still the answer. Okay, that concludes our lesson for today. And I hope you'll stay with us here at the Lethia Baptist Church, because at 10:30 a.m., our senior pastor is coming up with a message out of the book of Revelation as we continue our series through that book. And again, I want to thank all of you for watching and wishing you all a wonderful and blessed day.